Hinduism, Hare Krishna, Tantra, all of this is a cult and a dangerous cult. Yes, I say it what I say it. Namaste dosto, आपके Brazilian friend here और आपका स्वागत है to our channel. मेरा नाम राधिका है और आज I want to talk about strange experience through Hinduism, yoga or Tantra. This spiritual practice has become quite popular after the 70s. And of course, more and more the number of people interested in this practice grow. And yes, this is a problem. We need to talk about it. When I became interested in learning about Hinduism and the Hare Krishnas, I was immediately shocked at dosto because I started to hear people say that the Hare Krishnas were a cult. And I should be careful. Obviously, this scared me, but not so much to give up the idea. So I started looking for information about Hinduism and the Hare Krishnas, which by the way are not necessarily the same. Yes, Hare Krishnas and Hindus are not synonymous. But back to the subject, dosto. When I did my first research on the Hare Krishna movement, I started to see articles about crimes committed by people who used the name of yoga, tantra, and sanatana dharma. Of course, after digging deeper, I realized that not everything was what it seemed. What I realized is that here in the West, there were many self-proclaimed gurus and masters who promote supposedly millennial spiritual knowledge, but actually do not have any relation with sanatana dharma. Since it practices like yoga, Ayurveda, Tantra become popular, but Westerners don't know what it really is, scammers start to take advantage of, and unfortunately, there are a lot of people doing it. In fact, I discovered that much of the yoga and Tantra that is taught here in the West is not even real yoga or Tantra. Some things are even opposite and even offensive. But that only made me more and more curious to know what really is yoga and Tantra. And there was my first disappointment. Here in the West, especially in my country, it's very difficult to find someone who teaches the real practice of yoga and Hinduism. But since I am persistent, I decided to continue searching. After all, as the saying goes, when the disciple's ready, the master appears. And step by step, I got to know the real Sanatana Dharma. And it surprised me a lot because it's very different from what I could imagine. Unlike what we see here in the West, Hinduism is not about blind obedience to master, nor about expensive offers, nor about just being a vegetarian, and much less about physical pleasure, as we see with this so-called neo-tantra. Even some abuses are committed because of this neo-tantra. Few years ago, when I was seeking more understanding about the paths of Sanatana Dharma, I met a very dear woman who used to teach Bhakti Yoga in her temple. And I thought, cool, it's what I need. But when I commented that I was thinking of going to another temple that was dedicated to Tantra, she told me that I shouldn't go because what was from another tradition was dangerous and wrong. And I could only seek knowledge through her temple and her tradition. And I was like, girl, what? Because what I knew about Hinduism is that it is a relation of several paths, and exclusivism is not common. This is what made me suspicious because this thing of we are the only true, to me, it seems a cult thing. This idea that just we have the truth is not what the Sanatana Dharma says. And unfortunately, using the ancient knowledge from India to create a cult is not uncommon here in the West. You've probably heard of Jagat Guru. She was an American who supposedly taught Kundalini Yoga, and she was accused of mishandling funds and abusing her employees. She was a rape apologist. She restricted her disciples' basic needs, such as eating only foods that started with the letter P, few hours of sleep. And also, she asked them to tell her their darkest secrets, with the excuse that this was to get rid of traumas, something that is very common in cults. After all, if they have your secrets, they can and they will use against you, especially if one day you want to leave. Nowadays, there is no shortage of scammers, and since the New Age movement began to become popular, it's increasingly common to see masters, gurus, and people who claim to be enlightened sell spiritual classes and practices, especially from derived from Native American and Asian spirituality, with the promise of spiritual awakening. But I think it's worth it to say that in relation to Sanana Dharma and the things that came from it, blind obedience, expensive things, extremist practice are not common. By the way, one thing is certain. Spirituality also needs to be rational. So if you are thinking of practice yoga, tantra, sanana dharma, know that if you start to suspect that things are strange, trust your reason and get out. Now tell me if you have had any weird experience with any guru or spiritual leader, and if you liked the video, already leave your like or firmly